Hey, everybody, welcome to the Clean Comedy Podcast. This is the first time that I'm using Riverside.fm for recording. I use Zoom forever. So if this is weird or throws anybody off, I apologize. But this is one of those things that we're going to give it a shot and see what happens. Everyone keeps telling me go here, go there. So we did episode 350. Now we're doing episodes in Riverside, and we're going to see how it goes. And today I have a great guest. She did the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. I can never say that properly because I suck at saying foreign words. And but she's super funny. She's in Philly. Shout out to Philly for that because I love Philly.
We
And
just won. Go
yeah,
Birds.
that's right. We did just win on Sunday. That's correct. Beat the Patriots, by the way. Suck it, Patriot fans. Sorry if you're a Patriot fan, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. But please welcome the very funny, the very talented Leah Renee. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So tell us, anyone who doesn't know about you, tell us a little bit about you, because I see you're so active in the Philly community. Like you're super active, you're doing shows, you're running shows, you're all over the place. And then you go over to, where is the Edinburgh Fringe Festival? You have to tell me that too.
It's in Scotland, and I like noting that it's in Scotland. However, the crowds there, I would say, are just as from Scotland as they are from England. There's some debate about, Scotland being part of the UK or being its own country, and, depending on who you talk to. So it's a very UK crowd, but it is located in Scotland. And so yeah, it's great.
So you prepare. I think we talked about this. You prepared a little bit by you were running your own shows and doing stuff in Philly, warming up. How much of this set before you went over to Scotland did you run in Philly and try here and work on?
Well, I did bits and pieces. So I did an hour show, and it was kind of like Berbiglia style. People would say like a one woman show, and I'm like, there's not as much of the kind of acting and like the lights dimming and like a set, and there wasn't really that. So it was more Berbiglia style. Um, and I started some new material nights because that's what my UK comedy friends said that they do. Professional comedians over there, I don't think do as many of the open mics, or my friend sometimes maybe not so lovingly calls them hobo mics. But I found that those were hard. Like, I talked about things like my parents' divorce or something. And so it borders on storytelling, spoken word, kind of the moth. And that's hard to do at a bar in Philly at midnight. And
Yeah.
so I wanted, and I heard Moses Storm say the same thing, that he would do club sets, and he, was talking about being raised in a cult, and you're trying to like talk about that, dumpster diving and eating from the garbage while people are ordering buffalo wings. It doesn't mix. So I did start some new material nights, and that's where I encouraged comedians that maybe wanted to try some different kinds of stuff than they had before. That it wasn't a traditional open mic. It was in kind of a more alt kind of space, and people did longer sets, like 10 minutes. And so it was a chance for them to try out longer form storytelling, comedy kind of stuff. So I did that to work out some of the ideas. And then, like, I have 3 kids, and so I tell my birth story in that. And that's, again, you kind of build it up. So I would test little pieces of it at open mics. And then sometimes when I had longer gigs that I could do a fuller set. But it wasn't until I did a preview show in Philly, and that's when I did the full thing. Most comedians, before they go to Fringe, will do their preview show several times. And there's actually lots of little places where they're like, hey, try out your show before you take it to Fringe. So there's lots of places that will let you do an hour show or half an hour or whatever. I only did it once before I went, and that was fine. I wasn't trying to win any awards. I picked a very small room. I used the free festival, which it's free in that you rent the space, but it's extremely reasonable. You can go through a promoter, but there's a lot of stress when you do that, because you can spend easily $5,000 to $10,000 for a room to have that for the month. And then sometimes you'll also owe money on top of that. So you pay $5,000, and that's with the expectation that you're going to sell X amount of tickets. And if you don't, you might actually have to pay another $5,000 at the end. So when you get there, there's very aggressive flyering. Like, if you thought Jehovah's Witnesses with the watchtowers were like very forward, like, it's like, I don't think there are any Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons or people. Somebody said something like, "This is a terrible time to lose your cat." Because if you try to put up a lost cat poster, it's like just the whole town is covered in posters and there's people just handing out flyers everywhere you go. And it's very fun. It's very exciting. But I didn't want the stress of having to make up for ticket sales. So my show was pay what you want.
Wow.
And the particular venue that I was in did not have pre-ticket sales. There are free festival venue spaces where you can book a ticket first. It's pay what you want, but it's like you pay £5 to have a ticket to make sure you're there, or you can just turn up. And if there's space, you can go in, which I like that model better, but my particular space didn't have that option. So it's just all bucket.
So did you have to pay for that space, or the space came out of what you made of the pay what you want kind of thing?
No, you pay a fee up front and it's very small. It's like probably like between $100 and $200.
Okay.
But I mean, it was a small room. The bigger rooms, you're going to pay more. Mine sat 30 people.
Okay.
And I wasn't trying to win awards or pack out a house. This was my first hour. And so I just wanted to get it under my belt. And, then you pay them that money, and then any money that you make from the bucket, you keep. You don't owe them anything after that. So yeah, it was great.
That's pretty awesome. And then, so you were there for 30 days, so a whole month there. And how many times did you perform per night or per day, or like, how did you do that? And then how much, if you don't mind me asking, what was the total cost to do all this? Because it sounds kind of expensive, honestly.
Yeah, there's a lot of controversy around the Fringe Festival because people are priced out. It used to be this very kind of indie, like James Acaster just turned up there. I mean, this is, years ago, probably
Right.
20 years ago or something, but his friend's like, yeah, you should try this out. And so I think he slept in a tent in a field and would just do open spots. So it used to be like that. And I'm sure there still are people that do that. But for the most part, it is fairly expensive for a lot of people. I went the previous year and ran a showcase, but only for a week long. And then the rest of the days I did open spots and I saw shows and I got a feeling for it. Because that was the advice that I received, was like, don't do a show your first time, see it first. But that's a lot maybe if you're just going to see it for a week, but the lodging is expensive. So there was someone I found on Airbnb last year that I had a good deal from them last year. And it's a retired lady and I had a room in her house. It was about a 45-minute walk into town. So it was not super convenient, but for the price, it was great. Accommodation is the thing that just eliminates most people because it's so expensive. But mine wasn't too bad. I used air miles to get over there. We had, I have a family of 5. And so we just saved that up so that, after, I don't know, a year and a half of saving up points, it was enough to fly over there. And then there's like the cost of printing posters and flyers and things like that. I'm trying to remember the other questions that you asked. One was, how often? So
yeah,
I did my show at 11:30 in the morning, every day but Mondays. I took Mondays off. Most comedians don't take a day off. If they do, they take 1 or possibly 2 in the middle. I think it's starting to change. I did see more people saying except Wednesdays or to take a day off, which I'm glad I did because I didn't burn out. Even though I did 75 shows during the month. So yeah, so I did my own show every day, and then I did open spots on other people's shows, panel shows, game shows. So yeah, I don't want to sell it too hard because it's already too expensive and too crowded. So I don't want to I don't want people to be like, this is a great idea. Some people do really well over there and some people hate it. Like one of my favorite things is seeing especially American comedians that are quite well known have a really hard time. Like they're used to packing out rooms easily at a club with 500 people selling out multiple shows, and they get over there and people don't know who they are. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I should just quit comedy. Like this is so far. So I didn't expect that many people at mine. It was a 30-seater and I was like, if I have 5 people, that's fine. Like I'm used to doing dive bars and stuff. So
what was your average amount that you had in the show, do you think?
Yeah, probably 5. I mean, the smallest number I had was 2 people, and the most I think I probably had 17 people or something like that. But it's there are so many factors that change how your show goes. So air conditioning is not common there, and it's August. So many of the shows get very hot. So even though 11:30 a.m. is not an ideal time to perform comedy, because there's a lot of drinking in Scotland, and so most people aren't up by then, up and out. However, my room was never hot, but
Oh,
I've been to shows where people leave because it's so hot and because they pack people in there. I've been to shows where, like, I did a showcase where somebody was like took a spray bottle and would spray the audience, and there was a fan. I mean, it was just this hot box.
wow.
So that's something to consider when you're like, oh yeah, I have this. It's like just, I mean, I saw Al Porter. He was in a full suit. I mean, he looked great, but it was a big, it was like a big room. You think it's not going to be hot in there. Like it's
Right.
hot, small. No, it was it was like a, probably about the size of a basketball court, honestly. Wow. And it was so hot. And eventually he took his jacket off and he had a black button up shirt and it was sticking to him. The whole shirt was drenched. And as he flung his arms around, you could see sweat fly. I mean, it's pretty intense, and you walk a lot too as another thing. If it is kind of ableist, honestly, like, and I would like a venue that is accessible, but it's such a small old city that there's cobblestones everywhere and stairs, and it's sad because there are a lot of people who want to go to shows, but they can't because they can't get like a wheelchair up or down these narrow staircases.
Is there any place in America that does something similar to this, like
No.
some kind of fringe
No.
festival? This should
Hands down, no.
This should be something somebody does. This sounds amazing, like a great place for comedians to come set up and do this.
People in the UK know about it. Like it's par for the course in the UK.
Right.
It's not as well known in America, again, which I'm fine with because
you don't want to stall the go.
Competition for resources, but no, during the month there are about 4,000 shows that go on.
Wow.
So that's another thing. If you're kind of a famous comedian and you're going up at 7:30 at night or 8:30 and you're like, oh, that's a great time slot. Well, every other kind of famous person or someone who's pretty far in their career is also going to be at that time. And so at that time slot, there are 300 other shows going on.
Right.
And there's circus shows, there's cabaret, burlesque, storytelling, children's shows, magic shows, musical comedy, plays, spoken word, and then just kind of like bizarro stuff too. Just, I mean, anything you can think of could be going on at the exact same time.
Wow. Okay, so you ran your hour 30 times, or wait, minus 4.
Well,
26 times.
It started August 3rd and it ended on the 27th. So I think it was like 24 days or so. Don't check my math.
No, my bad.
It's not 30 days. It's not August 1st to August 30th. It's the 4th to the 27th.
So you still ran it 20 plus times, basically, right? About 20, at least 20 times. Now, did you record every single version of it? What was your process for that? And then did you find like it got better as you went along, or you dropped things or cut things or changed things? Like, what was your process for that? Did it change?
Yeah, I definitely did tweak things. You have an idea to kind of go down another avenue, which is another reason why I liked having a smaller room and kind of, it felt like I could play around more. And because people weren't paying $20 for a ticket, I felt like I could be more experimental. There are a lot of comedians in the UK that will take a work in progress show. So what many comedians will do over there is they work on writing their show all year. They take it to Fringe, they tweak it, they get it as good as it can be at the end of a month, and then they tour the rest of the UK with that show. And then when August rolls around the next year, they have a new show. And so it's very common in the UK to write a new show every year.
Wow.
So yeah. So for me, some of the things that you just don't know what's going to be interesting to people. And because you only live your life, your perspective isn't that funny? Isn't that weird? And people are like, no, that's not. But what is weird is this. And you're like, oh, I didn't. So I loved it because every show became like a Q&A at the end, just because it was small. And so I struggled with scrupulosity, which is a religious form of OCD. And there was, it just goes to show, like, don't judge anybody. There was a guy he came into the show a little bit late with another guy who's this huge black guy with a big leather jacket with like zippers and stuff. Like, and I was like, oh, he's not gonna, like, I tell like my childbirth story. during like, is he going to be like, what is this? I thought this was something different, you know, that, and I totally judged him. And then at the end of it, he explained his experience that he had like not unknowingly joined a cult as a teenager because he was very into music and it was like this very music-y thing. And then he found himself in the middle of it. And anyways, it was just such an interesting conversation with him about like OCD and kind of obsessions and things like that. And I loved meeting the people afterwards. So in terms of tweaking it, you know, you're always like trying to figure out what the audience thinks.
Right.
Like I talk about hypnobirth. When I say that in Philly, like it doesn't get a laugh, it doesn't get a clap. People are definitely looking at me, but I'm like, what are they thinking? And I want to know because I want to make a joke about it. I'm like, are you? And I try different angles on it. I'm like, oh, you didn't look like someone that believed in voodoo. And then it's like that doesn't make it. Oh, well, like what do you? When I say hypnobirth, what do you guys even think? And they're kind of like, we don't know. And I'm like, I don't. Oh, like it's so. In doing it over there, I can just ask them at the end of the show, like, did this make sense? And did it? So it's a great place for feedback and just like growing a show. And did it make sense? And then they inevitably would always ask me all these additional questions at the end, which was great because I'm like, oh, they had that question. I can include that. I need to write more of that. Oh, I can take that part out. That's too wordy or whatever. So yeah, it's a constant editing process, because you just did it the day before.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait a week between shows or even longer if you're doing kind of weirdy stuff that you can't do it like open mics and clubs and stuff. So yeah, it's an incredible place for creativity.
That's so cool. I think there's got to be a way to do something like this in America. There's got to be a place that everybody can go. I'm thinking some place in the Midwest because it's kind of like central. Everybody can kind of fly to. Someplace, a big city or like a medium-sized city outside of a major city that could just do something like this.
I mean, South by Southwest is that, but not for comedy
Yeah,
primarily.
it's not for comedy.
Like South by was like music first, and now there is comedy. So that's like the closest thing that I can see to it being it has to be a town that can handle like the population of Edinburgh is 500,000 people.
Okay.
And so during that month, I think the population of the city, I've been told it quadruples. I've never done the research myself on it. And so you can tell the people that live there because they're like cursing on their phone because they're like, like the lines for the bus and you know, trying to get around. So a lot of them, it's like the Olympics. Like a lot of them will leave and then rent out their space for exorbitant amounts of money. But like Salt Lake, for example, Salt Lake is a city that could handle that because they have okay public transportation for the middle of the city, like because they set up some infrastructure things. I know this because I worked the Salt Lake Olympics, the 2002 Winter Olympics. And so like they had the Olympic Village, like you need a university that's empty so that you can house people there. And so people can get like, there's certain elements and it definitely could happen.
What universities in Salt Lake that could house that many people? University of Utah. Okay, UU. Okay.
Yeah, if you did it during the summer.
What? Yeah, that's, you know what? This might be a good thing. This might be a thing to pitch, man, because that would be awesome. It would bring in tourism money. It would bring comedy up there. It would bring in a lot of stuff. But is it going to be? Yeah, I was like looking at like Minnesota or Cleveland or something like that, like somewhere more Midwest where like more people could kind of come.
Honestly, well, I want to say, like, I think Just for Laughs could be that if they opened it, but it's just so invite only. Yeah. So the Fringe Festival started because it's been going for like 75 years. Wow. So when it started, it was a cohort of special hand chosen, I think it was music or theater. And they had like 5 different people or groups that they invited. And then there was another group that was like, hey, what about us? So they made a fringe group that was adjacent to it. So I think the best bet would be I don't know how Montreal would feel about this, but if there was a Montreal Fringe that went on at the same time as the Just for Laughs Festival.
That makes sense.
Like, because, or like South by is kind of like that. Now there's more comedy shows. So it could gain that. The other thing, so Salt Lake would be okay. The alcohol would be a problem because they have different alcohol laws there.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
And I remember people complaining about that all the time during the Olympics of how they'd like drive over to Wyoming because they wanted better alcohol or higher proof or something like that. And I'm not sure if people would appreciate the drunkenness in the street. Like, I think somewhere like Boston, I think an older city that was built before cars
Yeah.
would make it. I mean, honestly, Philly has a Fringe festival.
Oh,
It's going on right now. Yeah, yeah. Philly would be a great spot for it. It's very walkable. There's plenty of spaces. But yeah, it's there really is not anything like it. And I've looked at doing some of the other festivals in the UK, and in talking with my comedian friends, they're like, yeah, there's nothing that's like, even if you did like Brighton Fringe or Leicester Comedy Festival, you're going to get up like once a day.
oh,
Not like, I mean, my friend Tiziano's a shout out to Tiziano La Bella. He's a Italian comedian. On the last day, he had 11 spots in one day.
wow, wow.
And that's not even the record. There's I call him Open Spot Kyle, Legacy James. He holds the record for doing the most gigs at Fringe. I can't remember how many he did in a 24-hour. I need to look it up. I'll send you a link to Aiden Jones made a documentary. It's not This Is Us. I think I'm confusing Alex Edelman's special. You Had to Be There. I think it's called You Had to Be There. And it's a documentary about Edinburgh Fringe. I will send you that. And anybody that's interested in Aiden Jones, he's a great comedian from Australia. He made a documentary last year about the Fringe. And that like completely captures what it's like to be there. You know, it shows the, gloomy weather that persists, because you think, oh, it's the summer. It's, it's rainy and it's a lot colder in Scotland than most of the places in America that you're going to be coming from. And so, but yeah, it's great. And there's nothing else like it.
I might have to just go there to like watch and check it out one time. That sounds pretty awesome. I've never even thought about that.
Yeah.
I know we talked about it briefly before you went, but I was like, I want to know the whole thing afterwards. And it sounds like you were able to do a lot of growth in a short amount of time because you had the opportunity to just every day go and grind. And that's the great thing is like comedians in America, like if we all could get an hour every single day to go up and do stuff, that'd be great. But we're lucky if we get 5, 10, 15 minutes, every couple of days or whatever it is. And so it's kind of rough there. What would be your biggest takeaway from the Fringe? What would be the thing that you maybe would change next time if you go, or the thing that you wish you would have done or didn't do? And then we'll go from there.
I'm considering staying closer to the city center because getting home to take a nap got harder and harder at certain points. In terms of monetizing Fringe, like I almost feel like I would do one show that was like my banker, because here's the thing, it's quite difficult to it's difficult to get people into a show to watch one person over and over, for an hour. And they call it Fringe Roulette. Fringe Roulette is where you maybe just saw a flyer, you don't know anything going into it, and you're like, oh, we'll just give this one a shot. And it really is, sometimes it's the greatest that you're like, oh my gosh, how come this person isn't more famous? Like, they're so great, they're so funny. And other times you're like, oh, like, so showcases do very well. That's why I did a showcase when I was first there. But they're a pain in the butt because you're booking people. They say, oh, I'm going to be late. Can I move it? I had someone, I also ran a showcase at Fringe just for 2 days. And the guy who went on last ignored the light 4 times. We lit him 4 times and he was the last one to go. And then we ran over our time, and the person coming in behind, so it's running a showcase. It can pay quite well, but, if you're paying your people and you're keeping track of it, so more people will show up to see lots of comedians on one bill, but then there's the management of it. So what I would do differently, I'm considering trying like a kid show, because people don't do comedy for kids, and they're hilarious. Like, I did a couple of shows called PG Hits. Shout out to RGB Monster and Ollie Horn and his people. They run a great show. But there were a lot of kids so I have clean material, but it's not necessarily for kids. Like, I have jokes about kind of autocorrect or, AI, and I'm like, our kids like, for example, filling out an email form. It's like, that's not dirty. It's just not relatable to a kid. And it really stretched me because I did the show 3 times. And the first time I did it, I was like, wow, there's a bunch of kids here. I'm like, do I have any like jokes about animals or something? Like, and so I think it would really stretch me to do like because it's, comedians are used to doing crowd work with adults.
Yeah.
Oh, where are you from? Are you two a couple? But like with a kid, I have this joke about like, prove you're not a robot. And I'm like, I'm tired of proving I'm not a robot. And I said, have you all had that? And I was like, yeah. Well, what do you have to do to prove you're not a robot? And this kid raised his hand. He was like, you could show a picture of yourself in your mom's tummy, which is like, it's so clever and funny. And it's like imagining that as like your identification is like your ultrasound. Like, it was cute and it was funny. And I think a lot of comedians that, they like being up late and drinking and partying and, just the idea of doing gigs at elementary schools in the middle of the day. But I don't know. It's like my feeling. And one of the reasons I came into comedy was to fight the epidemic of seriousness and to kind of democratize comedy to a wider audience than just people that go to clubs. Yeah. It's very like alcohol centric community, is very late at night. And I think old people want to laugh at 3:00 in the afternoon. I think kids want to laugh at lunchtime. Like it's just a good thing. And so I've considered doing a kids show that would probably pay better. I like doing my show in the morning because then I could do open spots the rest of the day. So that I wouldn't change, but the going back and forth, I mean, I routinely had 15 miles on my, I almost said pedometer. That's old. Fitbit. Yeah. I mean, I like walking, but it's like, I was like, man, I could do more shows if I could just pop home and I was going to say, take a nap, just quick little nap, quick back out. So yeah, maybe stay closer to city center, or Old Town.
That makes sense.
I have no regrets about the pay model that I used.
Good.
Like I don't know how, I mean, people will do GoFundMe's and Kickstarters and stuff to fund their Edinburgh show because I mean, you basically, I'm like including, okay, so your venue, your airfare, your lodging, and then like slightly more money for food and drink than if you're at home. I would say easily 15 grand.
Wow.
Like, especially depending on where you're flying from.
Wow.
Food, meals, venue, and lodging.
Wow.
Like mine wasn't, I mean, my lodging was $1,200 for the month.
It's not bad.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll be transparent about it. So the flight was free because I had miles. And then I made about 1,500 in my shows. So that covered my lodging, and then I had to eat anyway. And food over there is not that expensive. Drinks are, but if you don't drink, like,
yeah,
they're like, how'd you do it so cheaply? Well, you can not buy alcohol. That cuts the cost down a lot. But for most people, that's like, you could not breathe. Some people that just seems like it's too big of an ask.
Right.
But yeah.
So if you had to go back and give yourself advice at the beginning of this, of when you were going to start stand up or you're going to start this journey to try to go to the Fringe Festival, what piece of advice would you give yourself? What's the one thing you would do differently or say or prepare yourself for mentally for this kind of journey?
That's hard because I have an unfair advantage. I'm not like an exceptional person, but one of the things that part of my OCD is a deep fear of regret. And so I obsessively investigate things before I do them so that I don't make mistakes other people made. So I listen to every episode of Stuart Goldsmith's Comedian podcast. And that's where they talked a lot about the Fringe. And so I avoided most of those early mistakes. It's really hard to say because I feel like I did a good job of having low expectations going into it. So that I'm a mom of 3 and it's just it was so great to have like that alone time to just create. And so I don't know what I would have done differently. Yeah, maybe just because like I did, it sounds so wanky, but I did everything I wanted to do. Like I tried new bits. I signed up for just the right amount of gigs where I wasn't like, I guess maybe I would have seen more shows. I think, and that's everybody has that. Everyone is like, oh, like there are definitely some friends that I made there that I feel badly that I didn't make it to their show. So yeah, that I think I could have been a bit, but then had I done that, I'd be like, I think I saw too many shows. I was so burned out. I couldn't, like it's hard. I think I'm just I've kind of been more like kind to myself and radically acceptant. So maybe I'm in denial that there's things that I could have done better, but it's like, like you're always going to wish you did it differently. And so I kind of, I guess, give myself a pass, but I would say if I'm giving advice to someone else that hasn't listened to 10,000 hours of comedy podcasts prior to doing this, I would say like toe in, to like, I think it is good to visit it first. Unless, I mean, if you're 10 years into your career, 10, 20, then you're probably fine just going. But maybe flyering. I think I wish I had more posters. I wasn't super aggressive about flyering. I could have made, I'm just in denial. I could have like, if I ran my method by someone else, he'd be like, what? You only had 5 people in your show. Why weren't you flyering? Or why? I was like, I don't know, because I know people that do flyer and they're out there all day losing their voice handing out flyers, and then 2 people show up and then they're deflated. If 2 people show up to me, I'm like, yay, how did you even know about this? Like, I wasn't even hitting those streets.
That's being positive, though. That's positive. That's good. That's a great thing.
Delusional is probably a more accurate description, but whatever.
I would say positive. Well, where can people find you? Are you going to ever post any of those shows or sets or clips from those sets anywhere that people can watch, or what's your plan to do with that?
Yes, I have a new Instagram account that I just opened last week, and so I've been putting up clips on there. My previous account, the algorithms kind of messed up, so a social media person said it's best to start with a clean slate. So that's where those are. Leah Renee Comedian is my handle on Instagram and most other platforms. I don't post a whole lot from my actual show because the lighting wasn't great. Okay, this is what I would have. I think I would have hired a person to help me, like either exit or entrance. I did have a group. That's something different. There was a group from a university that sends students over as a study abroad. So they helped me for the first 2.5 weeks. So when they left, I would have hired someone to help me with exit and entrance and just to have enough. So yeah. So did I tape it? Yes. Are most of the tapes bad? Yes, because I was setting up this and setting up that, and I put up the camera, and so I go back, and a lot of the footage from my hour-long show is not very usable. But the clips from my open spots are okay. So yes, I post something every day, post a clip every day on my Instagram, and I can't think what else you asked me, but
you already said where people could find you on your new social media, so we'll put that in the show notes. And
I mean, you have everything, right? There's YouTube. There's leahrenee.co is the website. It's kind of meh. It is what it is. I used to care more about it, but bookers don't care about your website.
They don't
care about your content and socials and stuff. So yeah, I hate TikTok, but I have the desktop account, which I don't think they show anybody my stuff because I haven't gotten the app. So they're like, nope, we're not going to put anything. We're not going to let people see your content unless you get this Trojan horse of an app. So yeah, but I have, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Pinterest. I put my stuff on Pinterest just because I had like 14,000 followers because I used to do design. So I have them from that, and then I just switched the account and made it comedy. So I'll probably lose a lot of people. They're like, wait, what? How come you're not posting stuff about fonts and color theory? And stuff? Now there are jokes about giving birth. So
there you go. Well, thank you so much for being on. Thank you, everybody, for checking out the podcast. Please like, subscribe. Go check out this on YouTube if you haven't. And also, there are shorts from all of the episodes. I'm clipping it up and putting up shorts from all the episodes, back episodes of the podcast. So those shorts are going on there. I had one that hit like 1,600 views and stuff, but nothing's really blown up. I'm still trying to figure out the YouTube algorithm game and whatever. And whatever. But you guys still make me top in on podcasts, so I can't be upset about that, and it makes me happy that number one rated Queen Comedy podcast. That to me is big enough to be like, all right, I'm happy with that. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Leah. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Have a good one, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks.